Well, I want to welcome all you beautiful souls. This is our very first program of the new year. Hope that you had an amazing way that you brought in this new year. And we wanted to start off 2019 with a mystery school. But what is a mystery school? Have you ever attended one? What I know about a mystery school is they preserve and they hand down the wisdom of all the ages. And one expert that we dearly love is BJ King. And a lot of you know her. She's an intergalactic channel. She is a master teacher. She has been doing programs exclusively with Energized Living Today for the last year, and it's been absolutely an incredible journey. And that's what we are here to talk about today. So write down your questions, any questions that you have, maybe things that have come up with other master uh, I'm going to get it wrong tonight. Mystery schools. Well, we want to start off with BJ. BJ, that I just welcome you. I thank you again for coming and being willing to present this wonderful material to everyone. And you said that you wanted to start off by answering some questions. So why don't you go ahead and just dive right in and start answering questions? Are these questions that you received from people?
No, the hierarchy would like for me to tell you a little bit about my progression, how I even came to be doing a mystery school, because not everybody knows who I am or have heard about me or what I have done in the past. I am considered a walk-in. I came in 1969. And not unlike other walk-ins, I had absolutely no idea that I was a walk-in. I just knew my life was completely crazy. I was in bed with a man that I didn't understand being in bed with this person. Uh, I did not understand that I had walked in, I had bought the contract of the person who originally had this body, and that her contract involved having two children to create bodies for two other souls to come into. And so that happened through my life at that point. So from 1969 to 1982, I lived two lives, my life and the life of the person I was sharing the body with, who was the original issue into the body. In 1982, that person was released to go back into the Oversoul, and I got permission to have the body to myself. Until I made connection with my soul, which I did in September of 1982, I understood nothing about all of that. I just lived through it by taking 4 Valium a day. And then in 1982, when I made contact with my soul, they explained that I had walked into the body. And I went through a progression of direct communication with my soul from 1982 to 1985. In 1985, I would ask to sell everything that I owned and get in the car with just what would fit in the car and travel. And I was told every day what city to go to. And I was given names of people that I was supposed to find to deliver messages to. This was my training, so to speak. Disciples go through a training. Everybody's is different. Mine happened to be not walking through the desert for 40 years, but 5 years of completely depending on my intuition to know where to go, how to find these people, and then to make the worst cold call you'll ever make in your life, to call people up and say, your name came up in meditation this morning, and your soul asked me to come by and deliver a message to you from your soul. They'll either hang up on you, want to meet you at the pancake house, Or they'll say, I asked for a channel 3 weeks ago. What took you so long to get here? And those were your favorite people because they'd take you home and let you sleep on their couch till the next message came of where to go from there. So you build a faith muscle, and everybody's path is different. And that just happens to be the way mine was laid out. After that time, I was sent to Peru for 3 weeks. And during that time, I picked up an aspect of the Oversoul that was left for me. And this part of the Oversoul opened up in me the memory of where I came from, prior to Earth memory of where I was before I walked into this body. I was aboard a Venusian spaceship, and my job was to check the percentage of each of the 49 rays of God coming to the earth and to administrate the percentage that need to go to any different sector of the earth at any given time. Most of us do night work, and when you go to do your night work, you are aboard a ship or on another planet. Most of us have 4 hour time periods that we work off planet or out of our body during the time we're sleeping. And most people are not allowed to remember where they go or what they do during their night work. The reason for that is because it's so easy to be there and so difficult to be here. Because when you go there, you don't take your body, you don't take your emotional body, you only take your consciousness and your etheric body, and you are your job. You just do the job. There's no emotional connection to the other people that are aboard the ship that you're doing the job with. Everybody knows their job, everybody does their job. And then in in 2003, the spiritual hierarchy, the Master Saint Germain, came to me and asked me if I would be willing to write lessons for a mystery school. I had absolutely no idea what a mystery school was. I'd never heard of one. And they just explained that we will tell you what to research, what books to read, what archives to check out. And each lesson you will read or expose yourself to to approximately 1,000 pages of esoteric information. And then you have within your consciousness a device that distills down 12 pages from the 1,000 pages that you've read into today's language. So I've been doing this since 2003. Currently, we have 154 subjects, spiritual subjects, that have been covered by the spiritual hierarchy through me. These subjects have been subscribed to by a group of people who have learned about it and feel committed to it to the point where they make a contribution every month to receive the information. Mystery schools are for the purpose of educating disciples, people who are looking for information that goes beyond what the church was willing to let people know. Mystery schools started when the earliest version of the human came to earth. The masters came to earth.
Jairus, we're
So,
getting some feedback.
yeah. The masters came to earth and created mystery schools before the humans arrived. So the information has been around longer than we can even conceive of. But when humans began to create Christianity, the information that had been passed down through mystery schools was destroyed. As much as they could find it and destroy it, they did. They wanted everybody to be completely dependent on the church and the church elders. They burned, they destroyed, and the people that would not give it up and be Christian were killed. So after all these years and all of the church shenanigans to get rid of this information, it still was kept in secret. And then it began to reappear in terms of the Masons, the Masonic, the Rosicrucians, and then Theosophy. So a lot of this information has been written before by Alice Bailey, by Madame Blavatsky, and I had to read those books and to pull out the information that the hierarchy said certain humans, would be ready for now, which had not been published, and a lot of people know about it. Most of us that would be listening to me at some point in our life realized there had to be more than what the church was teaching. We didn't have any idea where to go to get the information. But once you begin to try to find it, your soul begins to put it in front of you in different ways, either by people, a book, a broadcast, a lecture. And now there's so much out there to help people to know beyond what was taught by the church. The difference is some of it is very hard to read and very hard to understand, like the things that were written by Madame Blavatsky. Alice Bailey's are a little easier to read, but it's just a quantity of information. The sheer number of words involved in imparting the information that they're now attempting to get it into fewer words because nobody has time to read 1,000 pages a month the way I have been expected to do. So this mystery school that they've started, the Namaste Mystery School of Remembering, is a condensed version of ancient wisdom. And the purpose is to make us ready for these big changes that are happening now, and especially about the ones that will be happening in the future. And because there is a huge population of humanity that will be waking up in the next 2 to 3 years, because we've gone through different dimensions and convinced higher vibrational beings to come in and overlight their aspect of humanity that's actually in physical body. So as this overlighting is taking place, there will be more and more people waking up wanting this information, ready to hear this information, ready to find it in written form, in verbal form. So those of you who are contracted by your soul to be teachers of wisdom will not have to go read 1,000 pages a month and condense it down into a language that's of today. And you will not have to figure it out. It will be there for you. So that it's in a way that you yourself will be able to teach it right away to all of these people that will be looking for this particular kind of information. The information that was hidden for centuries from humanity. Much of it was hidden because it can be misused. It can be used to control people and circumstances if it's used by people who have an inappropriate agenda. So that's why also it is called the Namaste Mystery School of Remembering, because the lessons have energetic triggers built in to cause triggering to happen in the person reading the information to cause them to remember when they did know about mystery schools and they did know the wisdom before. And as we've talked before, there's a huge difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge, you can read books, you can go to college, eh, you can gain enormous amount of knowledge, but it is not wisdom until you have incorporated it into yourself and you are using it. You are having your own personal spiritual experiences. That's wisdom. And that's the difference between book learning and experience. Everybody must, at some point, have their own personal spiritual experiences. It is not something anyone can do for us. It's not something you can buy. It can be passed down from one generation to another, the information, but it only becomes wisdom when it's incorporated into the person's life and used as a way of living, an ethical way of living, a holistic way of living, looking at all things as part of the one thing, all things issuing from God, all atoms, all molecules being from that source. Okay, now we can take questions.
Earlier today, Marie wrote in and she wants to know, since the ascension energies have intensified and she feels worked on, especially at night, she notices a thicker fog in her head. Can you speak to this effect?
Yes, new energies are coming in that we have never incorporated into the human form before. And they explained to me that was what was happening with you and I, Ferris.
Mm-hmm.
And we were trying to integrate something that we didn't really have the facility for. And so it was, instead of it being a graceful integration, it was causing the emotional body to react in the form of depression.
You know what? Excuse me for interrupting, but
No, don't
it did.
excuse.
For those folks who don't know, I suffer. I hate saying suffer from depression, but I have depression, and usually during the holidays, it's a time for me when I just hibernate. But this time, it didn't feel like the normal
Exactly,
depression. So that explains it. Thank
exactly.
you.
And I am known to be a demanding bitch as far as the
Oh, say it ain't
hierarchy
so.
of my soul and the hierarchy of my soul are concerned. Don't screw around with me. If there's something happening, explain it to me. Tell me about it. Don't let me wander around just pissed off because I don't understand what's happening. Tell me what's happening. Well, they didn't tell me until almost after the fact. of what this depression was about. And then when they explained it, I took a big, well, great, that probably means it's almost over. And as Cindy said, today, everything went, what did you call it?
All
Forward,
the planets went forward today. Yeah.
yeah.
And everything will be moving forward until I think it's March 5th. So we got a wonderful tailwind where everything's moving us forward, astrologically, and we'll get a lot accomplished. And what happens is when you have any planets in retrograde, then that's going to intensify everything that you were feeling, both you and Ferris. So for me, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, so our Christmas attitude and normal depression about Christmas got intensified because of the massive amount of energy that was coming into us. But the energy was coming in so much and so strongly that all I could really do would be sit in my chair and wish I had the oomph to get up and do something, which I could think about the something, but the impetus to get up and do it was just not available because the whole body was taking all this time and attention to integrate an energy that it had never had access to before. So the thing that Marie is experiencing is also part of that process. But in her particular case, it's also about the night work, going to do the night work, and you come back. Some mornings you feel exhausted already, because you've been doing a particularly difficult kind of work for the 4 hours that you've been out of the body. Also, in that case, sometimes if it's not time for that person to remember their night work, because they're still very much needed here in the conscious time frame than there. So they make it foggy. They make the memory foggy so that you're not forcing yourself to have the details of where you've been and what you've been up to.
Okay.
That's
and in fact, Nikki was wondering why we're made to forget what we do and where we're working at night. But then we're expected to remember all these mysteries during the day. That it does not feel like an efficient way to evolve.
One thing I have always complained about is that the spiritual hierarchy, in my opinion, which I am a humble opinion, but I'm not afraid to express it, is they're not efficient. And that God has absolutely no idea about geometry and a straight line being the best way to get from point A to point G, It's all about you wandering around out into the world because it's really all about the people you're going to meet along the way. And they're not always there when you go to there, and you might have to go back to there because then they're back there. So it's never a straight line. And I like a straight line. I like to know how to get there. I like it to be efficient. There's no efficiency about this. There's no efficiency and there's no straight line. It's about wandering around. It's about wondering. Wonder. They love the idea of wonder because wonder leads to awesome. And wonder and awesomeness are two big spiritual things. And we really have a tendency to overlook those two things in the amazingness of being a human, the amazingness of being on Earth, the most beautiful planet, the whole galaxy, the whole universe, actually. And we are so focused on what's in front of us and how are we going to get this done in time that we really miss the big thing, the big spiritual thing of the magnificence of what's really going on. And one of the reasons they want to teach us about all the other planes and all the dimensions and all the hierarchy and all these absolutely mind-boggling things that are going on in the universe and beyond is to get us away from that, broaden it, to make us think bigger, to accept that we're not just a human and we're not just in one place. We are massive. We are a particle of God inhabiting this body. And then we have a contract with the soul that created the body. The body's not even ours. The body belongs to the soul, and we were supposed to give into the idea of letting the soul operate through the body because we are universal citizens, not just earthlings. We are here on a mission, and the mission is to bring spirit into physical matter through ourselves, through our thoughts, through our intentions. And so this new information, which is new to me, and I am assuming it will be new to a lot of other people, about the different planes and how that affects this life and this dimension of the third dimension and the fourth dimension. We're in the fourth dimension now. But what actually happens and what's available energetically in each one of the planes of consciousness. It's the planes are divided by vibrations of consciousness. Like one plane will be a strata of a certain level of consciousness, and then it's not just like there's a fence and then there's another plane. It's gradual. There are 7 planes in the Earth system within this particular galactic system and Earth. And these planes would be different, and the laws and rules would be different on another planet. But most of it is universal, but a great deal of it is in relationship to the Earth and Earth's evolution and human evolution. And I've been wading through it for about 3 months now and trying desperately to understand it to the extent that I can even talk about it. And the good news for you is I wrote it all down.
Good.
You get the crib notes, as my friend Shayla says. She gives us the crib notes to the wisdom of the masters, because the whole thing has too many words. So in this case, she's also helped by making some diagrams that has helped me to conceptualize it and get it in my brain to a certain extent that I may be able to talk about it. And what I can't manage to verbalize, you'll get in the crib sheets, like you normally get the class notes after you've listened to me for 2 hours at each session. And then if I don't get around to saying whatever it is that they want you to know, they've already written it down and you get it in writing. And or you can go back and watch the video of me
again
talking
and again
about
and
it
again.
as many times as you need to listen to it before it soaks into you, hopefully faster than it has soaked into me.
Well, I'd like to invite any more questions, everyone. Just go over, if you don't have chat open, go ahead and put chat.
And we've got questions in the Q&A, Cindy.
Oh, you do? Okay. All right. And then in the Q&A. And also, Ferris, can you check YouTube? Or do you want me to do that?
We don't have any in YouTube yet.
Okay.
Everybody's asking their questions here.
Okay. All right. You want to go ahead and provide the questions? And 2 questions that I have while you're looking at those, Ferris, or one's a comment. It just really struck me when you said universal citizens.
Universal human. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's universal. It's not you know, a United States. I'm not just a United States
Mhm.
citizen or person. You know, we're universal. So all of the
Well,
galaxy.
not even a world citizen, not
Yeah.
even a global citizen.
Right.
We all came from different places to volunteer to say we would show up and help with this evolution of the earth and evolution of humanity. And then most of us, once we got here, were going, oh, damn, did I really volunteer for this? That's not what I
Yeah.
thought they meant,
That's not what I signed
I
up
thought they
for.
meant yeah, I thought they meant something that was going to be more fun than
I
this
did not read the
because we
contract well.
because we forgot how challenging it is to be in a human body with an emotional body attached to that and to be expected to interact with other humans who had a human body and an emotional body attached to that. We forgot that part because when we're there, we don't have those two things.
Mm. And speaking of
As
contracts, one of the things that you said at the very beginning was you bought the contract, you know, as a walk-in, you bought the contract. How did you buy it?
well, by agreeing to finish her contract. That's how I bought it.
Mm.
Okay.
I have to finish the host contract before I can get what's called a planetary contract or a universal contract. So I had to stay with her husband, have 2 pregnancies, stay there for 10 years. And then I was gone through a series of situations I was led into leaving my husband, coming to Oklahoma to marry someone else who was an Episcopal priest, and he died in my bed 4 days after I got here. So that I could leave my life, I could leave her life in Texas, could leave her family in Texas, and I could take the body physically, emotionally, always to live out my multidimensional contract of being a liaison between the spiritual hierarchy, the Intergalactic Federation, and humanity. And the training ground for that was the 5 years that I was captured in the car to listen to the hierarchy for 5 years.
Wow.
Well, they sent me to meet all these different people and scare them to death because they didn't think God really knew who they were. An emissary shows up on the phone and says, God knows your phone number. I mean, God told me to call you. And it's as if they didn't think that God knew their address, so they would want to meet me at the pancake house and not let me show up where they live. That always kind of amused me, that God knows your phone number, but not your address. It's all funny, it's all funny. When you're looking back at it, the 5 years, the dead person in your bed, the whole thing gets to be funny. 30 years later, 36 years later, you can laugh about it because he even said, once he's on the other side, and they didn't let me talk to him for 30 years because they were concerned that I would take his word over my soul because he was my
Oh,
priest. And so 30 years later, they finally trust me enough to let me talk to him. And what a way to go. Is that a male attitude or what? You know, what a way to go. Thanks for giving me enough energy that I could leave my body. Wanted to slap him, he's too far away, but I really wanted to just slap him. But see, now it can be funny. I mean, now that you know the whole story and you've lived through it and you're still reasonably sane, it can all be funny. And that's what I think is going to be useful to us, is to keep our sense of humor. I mean, there's so much going on that you could just get so depressed about, and that you feel like, I can't do anything about that. Why do I even think about that? But we're here, we're human, and we're in America, and we're part of this craziness. And we've got to remember to laugh about it because it is so absolutely absurd. And every day getting more and more absurd. The government is shut down.
To me,
Okay.
that's that same energy. Now that things are moving forward, I wouldn't be surprised if it opens very quickly, quite honestly.
Well,
It makes sense to me.
yeah, they, it,
Mhm.
I can't say that. All right, I won't
Okay.
say that. I won't say that. I really want to say that, though. Okay.
It's okay.
No, it's not. Let's go back to the original.
Okay.
Okay, let's go on to the questions, Ferris.
All right. Diane is asking in one of your previous videos that she saw, you said something about don't be a psychic, be a mystic.
Right.
And would you explain that?
Yes. A psychic is a person that opens themselves to the spirit world, not just to their own soul. A mystic opens themselves to their own soul, connecting to God through their own soul. When you're a psychic and you just wander around in dimensions, not in contact with your soul, you can get in a way lot of trouble doing that. And you can pass on a way lot of negative, not truthful information to people. So the major mission for us as humans is to make direct soul contact, I'm sorry, because we have the contract.
Yeah.
We should do that. Both things were true. And so one of the lessons in this segment of the teaching is going to be about the anakarana, which is the silver cord that connects us to our soul, and ways to strengthen that cord and increase the size and the strength of it to make it go through different dimensions so that we can become conscious of ourselves, our other selves, other parts of our soul in other dimensions. And so that the strength of the vibration of our soul communicating with us is stronger. The frequency of the communication is stronger. And they have written out specific paragraphs of things that we can ultimately do individually to cause that cord to be stronger. And we don't hear God, we don't hear our soul, because that's old fashioned, so to speak. It's a lower vibration than knowingness. Knowingness is what we're going for. Knowingness directly from the soul, who gets it directly from the source, is what we're going for. And we want it to be clear, we want it to be accurate. And if we get it directly from the soul, we're being a mystic, because a mystic is turned on to God 24/7. A psychic is involved in the astral world, the psychic world. And that's the difference.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Um, I've had experiences of miracles and divine connection to source throughout my life. And now, since I've been keeping track of my intuition, when I'm correct and write it down and thank God, it's happening more, even when I'm not testing it. Will this year help us to develop our spiritual inner connection to our higher self quicker due to increased vibrations on our planet now? Uh, she said,
Yes,
she
yes.
said, she
Plus,
said, she
plus the
said,
overlighting. The next highest level of our souls is coming down around the body, integrating into the body. The next highest level coming down, integrating into the body. So we're getting more and more of the soul in the body, and therefore the connection to the soul will be increasingly stronger, especially, as I said, in the next 3 years, because we have turned on this system of overlighting, bringing in higher and higher vibrations of the soul coming into the body. We don't have time to birth a bunch of babies and let them get 44 years old and wake up. We've got to have boots on the ground, consciousness connected, do the mission. We don't have time to slow down. We've got time to speed up, but to shrink down the information so that it's usable, powerful, and usable now in a vernacular that we can relate to, because it's like connecting to a computer to connect to your soul, connecting your mainframe, your body, yourself to the computer, but also to the source of all things, which is basically a big computer. And then all the different versions of that, of yourself in all these different dimensions, doing all different kinds of intergalactic work.
Okay. And she goes on to say, I am a psychic, and it all comes from my soul, all comes from God's self, the higher.
Okay, you're not a sidekick, you're a
She's hung
mystic.
up on definitions.
Yeah, you're a mystic. Yeah.
Okay.
So Diane, give it up, hon.
Yeah. Scratch it out. Admit you're now a mystic. Yeah.
And I think of myself as a channel.
And we love you.
Yeah.
And
You are a
well,
channel of God. We are all channels of God if we're willing to be, because we've got the flame in our heart that is the connection to that which sent us, which is the flame of God, the love, power, wisdom flames, the triple flame in the heart. Yeah.
here's a question from another BJ. We've got so many BJs. BJ wants to know, how do you learn to understand the meaning of the messages you're receiving? How do you discern the truth and differentiate tricksters from prophets, etc.?
First of all, you pray for the gift of discernment. Even before I left the other life, I was a banker. And in the Bible, Paul says there's all these gifts, spiritual gifts that you can pray for. And I didn't want any of the weird ones. I didn't want speaking in tongues. I didn't want healing. I didn't want prophecy. I didn't want anything weird back then. And I wanted something nobody else could know that I had it. And so I prayed for discernment. And it happened right away. And I could feel in the palm of my hand, I could feel a counterfeit bill. I could feel a check that wasn't good. I could just know that from the vibration of it. And that was my clue that the discernment was working. The way that it works when you're attempting to communicate with your soul is to be demanding. That's the one thing that I would like to pass on to you, is be demanding of your soul. Demand that you give it to you in a way that it's clear. This is the message. It's clear. It's not nebulous. It's not vague. It's not maybe, it can't be um, interpreted in 12 different ways. The message is clear enough that it just is factual. It is what it is. And then you have a choice, because it's a suggestion. It's not an order. It's a suggestion. And so when they make a suggestion, like they did with me, to go to Peru, you can negotiate with your soul. So you can write down conditions under which I can do that thing I don't really want to do. You make all these conditions. And then if you see the conditions beginning to be fulfilled in your life, in the, by the universe, then you know it's very important to the soul that you actually accomplish or attempt to accomplish whatever the thing is that you're being asked to do. Whether that's sell everything you own and get in the car and travel every day to places that you've never been before, to call up people you've never met before, whatever it is, if they ask you to suggest that you do something that if you don't understand it, demand. Give me more information. I don't get it. Tell me more. Tell me more. They may not tell you why, because many times they don't tell me why until I'm in the middle of it. And then they just, oh yeah, by the way, oh yeah, by the way, and then tell me what the hell we're doing here. What we're here, what I'm supposed to say, or what I'm supposed to pray, or what rays I'm supposed to pull in to do this thing. You don't get information ahead of time. It's a need to know system. Only need to know. Only what you need to know in today, which is why they recommend that we use that question. What is the next single thing for me to do or know, for me to be in a state of divine grace? Because technically we only ever need to know the next single thing. We don't need to hold big picture. That would scare us, if you don't mind my saying so, because to know the whole big thing, and there are days, even the big amount that I have been allowed to know, it scares me to think all of that is happening at the same time. And to just keep focusing on, okay, only the part that's mine to do. Only focus on the part that's mine to do. Not take on the whole scenario, because that makes you crazy and makes you feel like you can't do it. But if you just ask for the next single thing to do, and you're brave enough to try to do it, to attempt it, or show up for it, be willing, show up, look as good as you can. That's the whole job. But if you, you know that, Cindy.
Yeah.
So if you, yeah, and the older we get, the harder that part is to accomplish it, let me tell you. But anyway, that's it. Listen for knowingness. Don't listen for a voice. Listen for knowingness. Don't expect pictures. You don't get visions. You get knowingness that's so strong you can describe it to me as if you saw the picture. You want knowingness because where we came from, it was silent and filled with knowingness. When we came down here, people tried all these books, lots of these books you read, they want you to get guides. You don't want guides that are anybody but your own God, your own soul. You don't want just guides, random spiritual guides. They don't know any more than you do. They can make it up, they can convince you of things, but they're not your soul. You want the straight skinny coming from your soul, connected to the contract you signed before you came in knowingness. And when you get that and you operate with that, you do you make the effort to do the next single thing to do. And sometimes it will seem incredibly mundane. Go to this grocery store instead of that one.
Mm.
That's simple. Someday it's bake cookies for the people at the library. It doesn't have to be this big, seemingly spiritual thing that you're going to be asked to do. Sometimes it will be, like go to the middle of the Amazon jungle of Peru. That's when you get out your handy dandy big pen and you write down conditions under which I will do that. But when it's just a normal, everyday thing, there's a rhythm to it and there's a meaning to it. And it causes synchronicity. It causes connections. If you show up at the CVS instead of the Walgreens where you normally go, something can happen. You can run into somebody you haven't seen in years. You can run into somebody who needs to know something that you know. The object they're trying to buy, it's not there, but you do know where it is. And you can say, oh, I know where that is. You go down to so-and-so and they have it and it's on sale. you know? It may be that mundane, but it's your job. Your job is to show up and say whatever needs to come out of your mouth in the circumstance.
Now,
And that sounds like we're getting away from the big universal story, but it's not. It's distilled down into you in the moment to moment events of your life, which also reflects into the big picture. Everything we're doing is getting reflected into the big picture. Did you get any more questions, Ferris?
We've got so many, and there is no way we're going to get them all. I think this is from Kay. I think I got it right. She would like for you to comment on feelings of not. She's recently feeling not wanting to be here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
She's 67. She's spent all her money, and she's got fear of the future, and she just wants to wake up and be turned on to God 24/7. And she's feeling tired of living here, and I know that feeling of feeling homesick.
Mm-hmm. But the job was to come here and stay here and do the work. And when we get that level that you're talking about, the only thing to do, and I've been there, I mean, I jumped in the middle of the Pacific because I was going to do away with the body because I didn't know what else to do. And everything I was trying didn't work. And I was tired. And they dragged me out and pumped me out. And then started talking to me after that. Sometimes it takes a major event to get us to surrender to the point where they can get through to us.
Yeah.
So pray, okay? Pray. Ask God. Tell God. Talk to me, or I don't want to be here if you're not going to tell me what's important about me having to continue to be here. I don't want to be here. So tell me. Tell me what you desire for me to do
Get mad.
right now. Yeah, demand. Right now, the most important thing we can do is call forth to the hierarchy to create vortexes of the cosmic Christ consciousness energy and the violet flame. Anywhere you are, create these vortexes all over the world, beginning with where you're sitting, where you're living. And any place you travel, I don't care if it's the grocery store, the movie theater, the casino, wherever you go, make a vortex. And also spend all your time, instead of whining about having to stay here. Sorry about that, Kay. I have to use the words they use. You spend that time bringing things before the karmic board to get things balanced, because now we normally could only go before the karmic board twice a year, end of December 31st and the middle of the summer. But now they've opened the karmic board 24/7. You can go anytime. You wake up in the middle of the night, can't go back to sleep, take things to the karmic board, ask for special dispensation to clear the karma. Right now, I'm working on bringing the karma of all the tribes, the American Indian tribes, the North American Indian tribes, before the karmic board to clear all the things that have happened to them of being shuttled away from their homeland, taking their children, sending them to Indian schools, and breaking up families, all kinds of awful things that happen. But if we clear that karma, we ask to have that karma cleared. You can take anything, a war, a Holocaust, a genocide, anything you think of, or your next door neighbor who you'd like to have more consciousness, ask that their karma can be dissipated, balanced, whatever word you want to use. That's a full-time job right there.
mm,
No
But it
kidding.
is the biggest job we could be doing right now.
And we've still got questions, but but we need to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, you are going to be doing a 6-week mystery school. And
Yeah, I do the mystery school all the time. Like I said, we've got 156 or 7 subjects, and we'll be drawing from those subjects to teach in the mystery school. They just chose the title of this to be a mystery school language for the Aquarian age or something. They're trying to put out the idea that they're trying to bring this information um, to the public so that people have access to it and have access to it in a reduced way so that they have time to take it in, because we're all busy. We don't have time to go back and read Alice Bailey and Madame Blavatsky and Keys of Enoch and all these books that are very hard to understand. But we need the information, and we can get the information, and then we can begin to use it, just like the vortexes, just like the karmic board. These things need to be known by the masses, not just a few people like us.
And this mystery school is going to be starting this Thursday.
Mhm.
And Ferris, do you have a link that you can put up for everybody if
Yes,
they would
I
like
do.
to sign up? And why don't you go ahead and fill them in on the information? How much is it? And can they make payments? And what's the
Yeah.
link to the page?
It's $197. I just put the link to the page for the YouTubers in the YouTube chat, and I just put it in chat for the. Whoops! I sent it to Marielle. Marielle, you've already got it. I know. Okay, I've got the link in there for everybody now. It is. Let me give you the. Well, y'all will be able to see it. It's $197. It's 6 weeks. It's supposed to be 90 minutes. It'll usually end up being a little over 2 hours
And they
each
get to
time.
ask questions at the end. So if they didn't get their
Yes.
questions answered now, they can
Yes.
ask them at that point.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
And you get the written outline of everything.
Yeah, yeah.
The
BJ's
crib notes,
really
as she
good about
said.
that.
Yeah, that's
The
amazing.
Cliff notes.
Cliff notes, yeah.
Cliff notes. Anyway, you'll be able to check it out here at these 2 links. We start Thursday. It's at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. And of course, the replay is on our membership page.
Well, and all of the past classes that we've done through the months are now available there for purchase.
Yes.
Also, all the videos and all class notes.
Yeah, and even though this is part of the series, this particular one is really, it really lends itself to people who haven't even been in the series. So if you haven't been in the series, don't let that bother you. It is still open to you. And then if you want to play catch up now or later, all of the other series are available to you in video. And there's a link on that page. There's a link to all the other previous classes. And what have I left out, Cindy?
I can't
And
think of anything other than, Ferris, if you could speak a link or set up a forward, that would be great. That way it keeps it simple for everybody so they can get to the page if they only have auditory.
Also, I'm giving you a copy of the
Oh, yeah.
newest book that they've written, which is called Self Mastery of Mind and Emotion. And that is the longest book that I've written, has the most pages of any book that I've written. But I learned so much while I was writing it that I didn't know myself. And also, I sell it when I go to conferences and so forth for $25. So you're getting a $25 gift if you sign up for this particular series
Yeah.
of classes.
Oh,
Thank you. I forgot all about that. You can just go to energizedlivingtoday.com/BJ.
Any more questions?
Yeah. Dean wants to know, I want to make sure I get this right. Is it possible to have a blown fuse in your chakras? If you just don't feel anything, energy coming in or going.
You can have it so shut down that the energy's not coming in or out, you know. But you can, I've said this so many times, I'm sure you're just really glad to say it again. Everything happens from intention. If you intend to open that chakra, if you intend to whirl it, whirl it, whirl it, wake it up, you do everything with your mind. Your mind is your strongest asset, your mind and your imagination. So if you can imagine it beginning to oscillate, opening up, operating as it should, that's how you can fix it yourself. Nobody can do these things for you. People can tell you, oh, I'll balance your chakras for you. They can do it, but not as well as you can do it for yourself. Because it's all involved in your emotions and, all kinds of subconscious things that cause that to happen. So you're the best tool, so to speak, to work on yourself like that.
Okay, and Barry's got a. He said you've answered so many questions for him. Thank you. And he wants to know: do spirits play with our computers? Somebody plays with my computer.
Yeah,
Cats.
sometimes. Yes, sometimes they do. Sometimes
Yeah.
they have the capacity to actually add things to your computer. And when I was writing the 49 Rays of God book and getting all that very detailed information, which if you ever channel, sometimes it's hard to spell what they're saying.
Mhm.
And because our challenge is writing it down, after they're telling us this stuff. And so some of the things, and especially the spelling of the words of some of these masters of the rays, I had a folder, and then before I would work on it the next time, I would open the folder and there'd be pages in there of information that looked like it had been mimeographed on one of those very old mimeograph machines, the purple
Yeah.
ink
It
stuff
stinks.
yeah, yeah. And they would be in this folder. They would materialize them in the folder so that I would have the actual spelling of some of these things that I could hear it, or I could, get the information, but how would you spell that? So yeah, they can do it in the computer now. This was back before I was computerized. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Uh, and Kathy, this is such a great question. Kathy wants to know, how important is it to quiet the mind in meditation?
Darling, it's not even possible. Uh, for most of us, it's not possible. That's why we have two sides to the brain. The left brain can chatter away like it did on the first day when I decided, the book fell out. They threw the book off the shelf at me, and I read the meditation that they opened it up to. And I decided I would sit on the couch and do the meditation. And so I did everything it said in the book. I took a shower to symbolically cleanse my aura, even though I didn't know what an aura was. I was going to get this right because I didn't know what I was doing. Took the phone off the hook, sat there with my feet on the floor, breathing, counting, breathing, counting. My left brain was going, this is the dumbest thing you've ever done. This is not going to work. For God's sake, get off the couch, put the phone on the hook, and go get a job. And I'm like, nope, I've done all that. I'm just going to sit here till God says something to me. And it never shut up. And in my world, it doesn't shut up. It's always got an opinion about what's going on. But that doesn't stop the right brain from getting knowingness. So you just pay attention to the right brain, tell the left brain to shut up, take a break, go watch the commercials. I'm going to have a communication with God now. That's my attitude anyway, and it works. So if it works, I'm sure other people could do it too. Yeah.
Okay,
You
I was
can,
going to make that the last question, but Melissa just asked, how do we get direct information about specific journeys in this class? Does that make, I'm not sure I
that's
understand.
too vague. Specific journeys could mean a lot of things. I couldn't even relate to that because that's just too broad a
Yeah.
question.
Good thing to
Okay.
bring to the class.
Love you
Get more
guys.
specifics. And
Namaste, Brian. We're
okay.
going to have to get together and have a talk. Yeah. Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
And thanks for joining us.
And
Hope to see
we
you
will
Thursday.
see you. Yes, we will see you on Thursday. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. And remember, the link is energizedlivingtoday.com/BJ. Also over in the side, Ferris has it. If you're on YouTube, then you can also get the link below. So thank you. Namaste.